The Mediterranean laps the coasts of Europe, Asia and Africa. At the same time, it's home to many different religious and ethnic groups, Muslims, Jews, Catholics, Christians and so on. But they have one thing in common. They all share the primary tastes, flavours and aromas of the Mediterranean. Thyme, rosemary, olive oil, garlic, tomatoes, aubergines, fish, spices, dried fruits, nuts and so on. And yet, some of the countries are very well developed, they have sophisticated cooking techniques, others are quite poor, and they might be cooking in an oven made from camel dung. So on our journey, which starts from here, the Pillars of Hercules, we'll be exploring the different ways that these different groups treat these wonderful foods. Because as someone once quite rightly said, where the olive tree no longer grows, there is no real gastronomic civilization. We shall see. The Med is an eclectic mix of culture and tradition, of vibrant colours and smells. So before I begin my journey, here's a taste of the countries we'll be visiting. Greek influence on the Mediterranean is profound, not only artistically, culturally, mathematically, scientifically, but gastronomically. 500 years before Christ, they were cooking fine food. They taught the Romans how to cook. Hesiod probably wrote the first published cookbook, predating the Roman Apicius by centuries. But what of today? Well, what's cooking in Greece 2,000 years after the birth of Christ? This magnificent mosque, known as the Blue Mosque, was constructed around about 1617 at the height of the powers of the Ottoman Empire, when it was called Constantinople. Earlier, around about AD 330, when it was known as Byzantium, it became the capital of the Roman Empire. And Turkey, surrounded by four seas, the Aegean, the Marmara, the Mediterranean and the Black Sea, and straddling two continents, occupies a unique place in the world's history. When France abandoned la cuisine du terroir, the traditional cooking, and embraced la cuisine nouvelle, I thought the world had come to an end. It was made worse by the fact that they capitulated happily to the American gastronomic, if I may use that word, colonization, hamburgers and chicken nuggets and stuff like that. And yet, the Côte d'Azur with its sun, its palm trees, its beautiful naked women, still pulls. On va voir. It's hot, it's passionate, it's Spain. It's a bull ring in Ronda. Every September there's a special festival, and what they celebrate at that time is the man who set up the ground rules for modern bullfighting, who was born in 1755, Pedro Romero. He started bullfighting at the age of 8, and by the time he died at the age of 90, he'd killed 6,000 bulls without being gored. However, if you don't like death in the afternoon, there's a bar straight across the street. 2,000 years ago, this sun-baked, brutal arena saw more horribleness than the bull rings of Spain. They threw the Christians, the slaves, and the criminals to the lions. And no, we're not in Rome, we're in Tunisia, the land of spicy red peppers and couscous. And our journey from here will take us to Morocco, to Marrakesh. The job description must have been good, sun and sand, but then they forgot to mention the pile of rocks they had to build with. But they weren't underfed, they ate well, the ancient Egyptians. Salted fish grilled, 15 kinds of bread, some of which you can still find in the villages to this day, and about 9 kinds of beer, much of which was very much stronger than the beer we drink today. On the other hand, their masters, the lords, the pharaohs, the kings, the queens, all that lot, they ate pomegranates and pears and plums and apples and geese and pigeons and doves and drank wine and had a fine, fine time. Actually, things haven't changed much today. My journey begins here in Athens. This ancient city is dominated by the Acropolis, which represented the high point of Greek civilization, where art, philosophy, mythology and cuisine were highly developed. The Acropolis, although not the largest Greek monument in the country, is probably the most esteemed. It was built in the 5th century before Christ to celebrate Athena, the goddess of strength and wisdom. She was born, or rather should I say, she was created, fully clothed and fully armed from the head of Zeus, who was the lord of the gods, in fact the head chef of the universe, if you like. She was a tough old cookie. In one particular battle, when she had to destroy a giant, she picked up the whole island of Sicily and hurled it at him and flattened him, which makes poor old Boadicea's efforts against the Romans in ancient Britain look a bit sick. For 2,000 years or so, Greece was part of the Roman, Byzantine and Ottoman empires. So not surprisingly, Greek food has many influences. The use of pasta reflects the Italian influence, whilst kebabs and yogurt were developed by the Turks, and the Arabs too added subtle spices and fruits. But the core ingredients remain: olive oil, mountain lamb, herbs, and of course the rich bounty of seafood from the Mediterranean. All these elements to be found in modern Greek cooking. Enough of the monuments, I'm off to the Plaka, the old part of Athens, where a multitude of tavernas try to tempt the passing visitor to take a glass or two and a bite to eat. Now, we're in a very strange situation. We are genuinely at lunchtime in Athens underneath the Parthenon, and my friend here, whose name I don't know and with whom I cannot communicate because neither of us speak our mutual languages, will be cooking, presumably, as orders come in, while I'm going to try to cook a wonderful piece of fish, some vegetables and some spinach. Unusually, for me, there's no meat involved in any of these dishes at all, so those of you of the vegetarian persuasion might be quite pleased. However, the first thing we do is rub some salt over this, and then some marjoram and thyme in the slats I've made down the side of it. Rub that all over. We're going to put some inside the fish as well. We're going to put some lemon juice in it. We'll do the same on this side. We're very much on a wing and a prayer here. So that's an order coming in right now. And you Greek students, I'm sure, will be reaching for your phrase books as we speak to translate it. Right, the first thing that's going to happen is, unbelievably, that is going in there. The fish, by the way, can be a black bream or a bass, for example. Then it's going in there. And then it's going on there. I thought it'd be quite good fun to make a very simple dish of courgettes, aubergines, peppers, onions and tomato. For those of you who like French cooking, this is not a ratatouille, it's a very simple sauté of vegetables. Now, it's important with things like aubergines and courgettes to sprinkle them with salt first of all on a piece of tissue paper, and you can see that the liquid has come out of them. That's a good thing to do. Right, first thing into this pot go the onions. Now, the way to make this dish really, really good is to part cook each of the vegetables individually and separately. This way they really are going to maintain their flavour. So we've got the onions lightly seared in olive oil in this pot. Then the next longest cooking vegetables will be the red and the green peppers. A little bit of garlic. Now these have taken the flavour of the salt and the garlic and the same oil that the onions were cooked in, so they can now join the onions. You sear the aubergines both sides and they join the peppers and onions. I'll also sprinkle some thyme, marjoram and some fresh parsley over the dish. The courgettes are now ready, so they too join the peppers and the aubergines. The next thing is we're going to make a wonderful dish of spinach. And the first thing we're going to do in this hot olive oil is fry some spring onions. I have some garlic there. And Scott, when you come back, put a couple of ladles of that rice pasta from George's thing into my copper pan here, just over there. This rice pasta is very good. It's shaped like rice, but in fact, you might look at it right now if you want to. It's cooked in the normal way. That isn't rice, it's pasta, but it's shaped like rice and it's jolly very good. Cooked in water in the ordinary way. Here I've got spinach and spring onions frying in a little olive oil. Nutmeg going in and some cumin going in. And we're going to add a bit of lemon juice. Then we're going to add some fresh dill. Then we're going to add some salt and some pepper. I'll now add the spinach into my pasta dish. A small amount of tomato sauce. Thank you. Yes, please. Could you turn that over for me? Thank you, chef. Thank you very much. My chef has turned that over for me. Very nice of him. I'm going to bring some Arab influence in once again. Some toasted sultanas, raisins and almonds. And just to warm them, we'll put them in there for a sec. Just toast those over again, and then we'll tip them into there. Kill that one. I've made a roux with flour and butter, simmered gently over a low heat, to which I'll add some lemon juice for a tangy flavour. I want that big fish on the big platter. Who said too many cooks could spoil the broth? They want it the other way over. Oh, that's it, that's great. That's excellent. I've whisked up some eggs, and that goes into the lemon sauce with some dill and mint and... Simply, very gently, whisking hard all the time. Then we pour this wonderful lemon and mint and dill sauce over our fish like that. We put beside it our wonderful dish of sautéed Mediterranean vegetables with spinach, nuts, and pasta rice. And, well, that's called cooking, baby. In the 1950s, after the Civil War, the population of Athens exploded. Today, some 6 million people, a third of the entire population, are crammed into the capital. Traffic jams are a part of everyday life, and the pollution is simply awful. I'm in a hurry, though. The hydrofoil leaves in 20 minutes, so I'm going to cut my losses with this taxi and walk. It'll be quicker. The Flying Dolphin takes me southwest of Athens to the Peloponnese, where I discovered a little village called Kranidi. Like so many fishing communities, this place is like stepping back in time. No gigantic trawlers here heading out hundreds of miles for days on end. Just 2 men with a boat and small nets fishing a few miles offshore, following a tradition of hundreds and hundreds of years. In these days of overfishing and depleted stocks, it's a hard way to earn a living. I met the skipper, Pionopoulos, in the bar last night. It was a sort of stag night, because his daughter's getting hitched later today, and I've been invited to join them. Well, after 4 hours of winching in these nets, we haven't caught enough to feed my cat. It's clearly a busted flush. In fact, in the West Country of Britain, they call these empty nets black nets. So I think I'm going to head back to the skipper's daughter's wedding for a bit of dancing, a bit of drinking, possibly some fighting, and certainly some food. The Greek Orthodox Church has played an important role in the country's history. During the Venetian and Ottoman rule, the Church preserved the Greek language and identity. Greek weddings are quite lively affairs, full of symbolism and lasting about an hour. A good hour. The crown symbolized the marriage is noble. From this point, the happy couple are viewed as king and queen. Then a few people start throwing things, another prayer, and then, for some extraordinary reason, all hell breaks loose, and everyone starts hurling sugared almonds. Anyway, I've a long journey ahead, so I'll slip quietly away. Nothing can quite prepare you for your first sight of the Monasteries of Meteora. Meteora literally means rocks in the air, and never was a description more apt. From as far back as the 14th century, monasteries were built precariously hanging over sinister chasms, offering a life of worship and solitude. Do you know, I've travelled a great deal in this happy job I have, and sometimes I've been a bit, cynical, a bit bored with seeing these amazing things that you're supposed to be gobsmacked by, but here I am, genuinely gobsmacked by this remarkable feat of architectural engineering to get a monastery on the top of a sheer-faced cliff, which I imagine even Chris Bonington would balk at having to climb with the modern-day equipment. Ropes, nets, and jointed ladders were the only way to scale these sheer rock faces, so all the building materials were painstakingly hauled up. So too the food. At the base of the rock, small holdings supplied vegetables, goats and lambs, provided cheese and meat and chickens, and a supply of eggs and birds for the pot. Even water had to be hauled up and stored in barrels. A good fun lamb dish, some lovely pieces of leg of Greek mountain lamb, the kind of lamb that eats thyme, rosemary and marjoram. It's beautifully flavoured, young, delicious lamb. We're going to chuck some finely chopped onions in. Let those brown and soften a little. We're going to add quite a lot of garlic. Now, into here we'll now add some chopped tomatoes, some marjoram, one of the most common herbs in Greece, and it goes very well with lamb, but then so does rosemary, so does mint, and so does oregano. But here, when you see all those pink flowers along the edge of the roadside, that is the flowering marjoram. Then we're going to add some dried apricots. Some dried mint. Fresh mint would have been better. I just couldn't get any. Then a drop of chicken stock. The reason I'm using chicken stock is my next dish later on involves chicken, so I thought I'd use it in this as well. Spoonful or thereabouts of tomato puree. And some lemon juice. And finally, some crushed coriander seeds. Now, we've put that on a nice low gas now to simmer for about 40 minutes. In the meantime, I thought I'd do a little bit about the olive oil process. Most countries around the edge of the Mediterranean claim to be the first country ever to have produced olive oil. Certainly here in Greece, olive groves have been planted since 2,500 years before Christ. But it's self-evident that they're very difficult to harvest here. So what they do, they spread nets on the ground, and then when the black olives are ripe, and that's normally January, February, March, after the late winter frosts, when they're ripe, they clamber up the trees and hammer them down onto the nets. These are then taken away to the olive factory or the warehouse or whatever, where they're warmed up. They're not fermented, they're just warmed up, and then they're crushed, stones and all, into a paste, into a large stony paste. Then put into, these days, into synthetic baskets. So it's like a sandwich of synthetic baskets, and a huge press comes down on them and squeezes out the oil. The first oil to come out is the best, the most expensive. It's called virgin olive oil. The second oil is squeezed again and again and again for less good quality. The green olives are normally picked around about September or August even, and they're the ones preferred for eating. Meanwhile, my lamb is nearly cooked, so I'll make a puree to accompany it. Last night, in the hotel, we got some aubergines, pricked them in their skins and roasted them in a dry, hot oven until the aubergines had almost collapsed. When they were cool, we cut open the aubergines and took out this resulting puree, which is mixed with a little bit of lemon juice to keep it fairly white. Then we're going to add some milk to that. Then I'm adding cream because I'm making an aubergine puree. Some local hard cheese goes into that. Instead of using flour to thicken things or smooth them, use instant potato. It's virtually tasteless in its raw form. It thickens things like this and makes a very nice consistency. It is not a dishonest thing to do, it's a smart thing to do. So a few bits of powdered potato in there.
In here I have a free-range cockerel which has been simmering in water, lemon juice with some onion, salt and a bay leaf. For the sauce I've fried some finely chopped onions and garlic in walnut oil. Then I add some paprika.
Right, a drop of lemon juice in here. So this excellent chicken stock from here. Finely grated walnuts. A drop of cream for thickening things that you don't want to run the risk of spoiling with flour. Just a little bit of powdered potato, just to make it liaise nicely together.
Free-range cockerel poached in lemon juice and stock with walnut sauce flavoured with chili oil. Greek mountain spring lamb sautéed with tomatoes, lemon juice, apricots and coriander and served with yogurt and an aubergine puree. For a small fee you can visit these monasteries, but be warned, there are hundreds and hundreds of steps to climb. But no pain, no gain. It is truly worth the effort. For me, all too quickly it is time to leave this mystical and magical place. In fact, my expedition through the Greek mainland draws to a close. The next leg of my journey takes me to the Greek islands, so I'm now heading west on a bearing of 280 degrees to my first port of call, Corfu, to see what's cooking.